What if the ancient world wasn't as fragmented as we've been led to believe? What if, thousands of years ago, civilizations across the globe were connected by a shared network of knowledge, ideas, and even technologies? From the towering pyramids of Egypt to the enigmatic stone circles of Europe and the colossal heads of Easter Island, there's a strange thread that seems to tie these ancient cultures together despite being separated by oceans and millennia. Today, we're diving into one of history's most captivating mysteries, the possibility of an ancient global civilization that once connected humanity in ways we're only beginning to understand. This isn't just about isolated marvels or coincidental similarities, it's about a story that could rewrite everything we think we know about our past. We'll explore the evidence, the controversies, and the questions that keep historians, archaeologists, and curious minds like yours on the edge of their seats. Are these similarities just chance, or is there something more profound waiting to be uncovered? Let's find out. What if the ancient world wasn't as fragmented as we've been led to believe? What if, thousands of years ago, there existed a vast network of societies spanning continents and oceans that shared ideas, technologies, and beliefs? This is the bold claim at the heart of the theory of an ancient global civilization. It's a concept that challenges the traditional narrative of isolated cultures developing independently, suggesting instead that our ancestors were far more interconnected than we ever imagined. Think about it. Across the globe, we see eerily similar architectural feats: pyramids rising in Egypt, temples carved into the jungles of Mesoamerica, and massive stone structures scattered from Peru to Indonesia. These aren't just coincidences. The precision, the alignment with celestial bodies, the advanced engineering, all of it points to a level of sophistication that seems almost impossible for societies supposedly cut off from one another. But this theory goes beyond architecture. It delves into the shared myths, symbols, and even technologies that appear in cultures separated by vast distances and seemingly insurmountable barriers. The serpent, for example, appears as a sacred symbol in cultures from the Aztecs to the ancient Egyptians. Flood myths echo across continents, from the Mesopotamian epic of Gilgamesh to the stories of the Maya. Even the use of megalithic stonework, massive, precisely cut stones, shows up in places as far apart as Japan and Bolivia. So, what ties all of this together? Proponents of the ancient global civilization theory argue that these similarities aren't random. Instead, they point to a prehistoric network of advanced societies that exchanged knowledge and ideas. This network, they suggest, could have been facilitated by seafaring cultures or even earlier, now lost civilizations that once thrived during the last ice age. Of course, this idea isn't without controversy. Mainstream archaeology often views these connections as coincidental or the result of parallel development. But when you start to piece together the evidence, the shared symbols, the advanced technologies, the architectural marvels, it's hard not to wonder if there's more to the story. Could these similarities be the remnants of a once unified world, a global civilization that predates recorded history? As we explore this theory further, we'll dive deeper into the evidence, the challenges to the mainstream narrative, and the tantalizing possibility that our ancient ancestors were far more connected than we've ever realized. The story of humanity's past might be far more complex and far more fascinating than we've been taught. What if the architectural wonders scattered across the globe aren't just isolated achievements, but pieces of a much larger, interconnected puzzle? From the towering pyramids of Giza to the majestic ziggurats of Mesopotamia and the enigmatic stepped pyramids of Central America, these ancient structures share striking similarities that defy simple coincidence. Each of these monumental feats of engineering showcases a level of precision and sophistication that seems almost impossible for their time. But what's truly fascinating is how these structures, separated by vast oceans and thousands of miles, appear to follow a shared architectural language. Take, for example, the Great Pyramid of Giza. Its alignment with the cardinal points is so precise that even modern technology would struggle to replicate its accuracy. Now compare this to the pyramids of Teotihuacan in Mexico, which also align perfectly with celestial events like the equinoxes. Both structures demonstrate an advanced understanding of astronomy, suggesting that their builders weren't just constructing monuments, they were creating cosmic calendars. Then there's the shared use of step designs, seen in the ziggurats of Mesopotamia and the pyramids of places like Chichen Itza. These stepped forms aren't just aesthetic choices, they're symbolic, often representing a connection between the earth and the heavens. The question is, why would cultures with no known contact with each other produce such similar designs? Could it be that they were all drawing from the same ancient source of knowledge? And let's not overlook the materials and techniques used. The massive stone blocks of the pyramids, the intricate carvings on the ziggurats, and the precise masonry of the Mayan pyramids all suggest a level of engineering skill that seems to transcend time and geography. Some theorists argue that these similarities aren't random, they're evidence of a shared architectural blueprint, possibly passed down by a long-lost civilization that once connected the world. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. If these structures were built by separate cultures, why do they all point to the same celestial events? Why do they all incorporate such precise mathematical and astronomical knowledge? Could it be that these ancient builders were part of a global network, sharing ideas and techniques across continents? Or is there a deeper, more mysterious connection at play? As we explore these questions, one thing becomes clear. The architectural marvels of the ancient world are more than just stones stacked into impressive shapes. They're windows into a time when humanity might have been far more connected than we ever imagined. And if that's true, what else might we uncover about our shared past? One of the most captivating mysteries of our ancient past lies in the massive stone structures scattered across the globe, monuments like Stonehenge in England, Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, and the towering Moai statues of Easter Island. These megalithic wonders have long fascinated historians, archaeologists, and curious minds alike. But what makes them so extraordinary isn't just their size or their age, it's the precision and purpose behind their construction. How did ancient civilizations, often thought to be isolated and primitive, achieve such feats of engineering? And more importantly, what were these structures meant to accomplish? Could they have been more than just local landmarks, but instead part of a larger, interconnected system? Take Stonehenge, for example. This iconic circle of towering stones wasn't just a random arrangement. The alignment of its massive slabs suggests it may have served as an ancient astronomical calendar, tracking the movements of the sun and moon with remarkable accuracy. Then there's Göbekli Tepe, a site so old it predates the invention of agriculture. Its intricate carvings and carefully placed pillars hint at a level of sophistication that challenges our understanding of early human societies. And let's not forget the Moai, those imposing figures carved from volcanic rock on Easter Island. Each statue, weighing tons, was transported across miles of rugged terrain, a task that would be daunting even with modern machinery. What ties these sites together is not just their grandeur, but the questions they raise about the people who built them. How did they move and shape such enormous stones without the tools or technology we associate with advanced engineering? Some theories suggest the use of levers, ramps, and even water-based transportation methods. Others propose that these civilizations possessed knowledge or techniques that have since been lost to time. But perhaps the most intriguing idea is that these structures weren't isolated projects. Could they have been part of a global network, serving as markers or hubs for communication, trade, or even the sharing of knowledge across continents? The precision and alignment seen in many of these sites suggest a deeper purpose. Were they observatories, spiritual centers, or even navigational aids for ancient travelers? The possibility that these structures might have been connected either physically or symbolically opens up a tantalizing line of thought. If true, it would imply that ancient civilizations were far more interconnected than we've been led to believe. And if that's the case, what else might they have shared? Stories, technologies, or even a collective understanding of the cosmos? As we continue to uncover the secrets of these ancient marvels, one thing becomes clear: they are more than just relics of the past. They are puzzles waiting to be solved, and each discovery brings us closer to understanding the ingenuity and ambition of the people who came before us. What else might these stones be trying to tell us? The answers, it seems, are written not in words, but in the very earth beneath our feet. From the towering ziggurats of Mesopotamia to the lush rainforests of the Americas, ancient myths seem to whisper a common thread. Across continents and oceans, stories of great floods, celestial deities, and epic battles echo with an uncanny resemblance. Take, for example, the Mesopotamian tale of Gilgamesh, where a devastating flood wipes out humanity, sparing only a chosen few. Sound familiar? It's a story that mirrors the biblical account of Noah's Ark, as well as flood myths from ancient India and even the Aztec legend of Coxcox. How is it that cultures separated by vast distances and thousands of years could share such strikingly similar narratives? The answer might lie in something deeper than coincidence. Many scholars suggest that these myths are more than just imaginative tales. They could be fragments of a shared human memory. Imagine for a moment a time when humanity was not divided by oceans or language, but connected by a common understanding of the world. Could these stories be the echoes of a civilization that once spanned the globe? It's a tantalizing idea, one that challenges our modern assumptions about how ancient societies interacted or didn't. Consider the recurring theme of sky gods. In Mesopotamia, the god Anu ruled the heavens, while in Mesoamerica, Quetzalcoatl descended from the skies to bring knowledge to humanity. In China, the Jade Emperor held court in the celestial realms. These figures, though separated by geography and culture, share a striking resemblance in their roles and symbolism. Could they all be interpretations of the same ancient archetype? A being, or perhaps a concept that transcended borders and time? But it's not just the gods that connect these stories. The motifs themselves are eerily consistent. The flood, often seen as a divine punishment or a reset for humanity, appears in cultures as diverse as the Sumerians, the Maya, and the indigenous peoples of Australia. The idea of a great deluge followed by rebirth seems to be a universal theme. Even the structure of these myths, heroes chosen by the divine, trials to overcome, and the eventual renewal of the world feels like a shared blueprint. What if these myths are more than just stories? What if they're clues left behind by a civilization that once thrived on a global scale? A civilization whose influence was so profound that its stories survived the collapse of its cities, the shifting of borders, and the passage of millennia. The evidence is tantalizing, scattered across the world in the form of shared symbols, recurring themes, and eerily similar legends. Could it be that these myths are the whispers of a time when humanity was more connected than we ever imagined? As we piece together these ancient narratives, we're not just uncovering stories, we're uncovering a possibility that challenges our understanding of history and invites us to see the past in a new light. And as we move forward, we'll explore even more of these connections, digging deeper into the evidence that suggests our ancestors were far more interconnected than we've been led to believe. One of the most fascinating aspects of ancient history is the discovery of artifacts that seem to defy our understanding of technological progress. Take, for example, the Antikythera mechanism, a device found in a shipwreck off the coast of Greece dating back over 2,000 years. This intricate bronze device, often called the world's first analog computer, was capable of predicting astronomical positions and eclipses with remarkable precision. How could such a sophisticated piece of technology exist in a time when most of humanity was still using simple tools? The answer might lie in the possibility that this wasn't an isolated invention, but part of a much larger, interconnected system of knowledge. Then there's the Baghdad Battery, a clay jar unearthed in modern-day Iraq that dates back to the Parthian or Sassanid period around 2,000 years ago. Inside the jar, archaeologists found a copper cylinder and an iron rod, seemingly designed to generate an electric charge. While its exact purpose remains debated, the mere existence of such a device suggests that ancient peoples may have understood principles of electricity long before we give them credit for. Could these technologies have been shared across cultures, part of a global network of innovation that has since been lost to time? What's striking about these discoveries is how they challenge the linear narrative of human progress. We often assume that technological advancement is a steady climb from primitive tools to modern marvels, but artifacts like these suggest a different story, one where ancient civilizations may have achieved levels of sophistication that rival or even surpass our own in certain areas. Were these inventions the result of a single brilliant mind, or were they the products of a shared global knowledge system? The evidence points to something extraordinary, that ancient peoples may have been far more connected and far more advanced than we've ever imagined. And it's not just about the artifacts themselves, but what they represent. The Antikythera mechanism and the Baghdad Battery aren't just curiosities, they're clues to a deeper mystery. They hint at a world where knowledge was exchanged across vast distances, where ideas and innovations flowed freely between cultures separated by oceans and continents. Could these technologies be the remnants of a once global civilization, a network of societies that shared a common understanding of science and engineering? The more we uncover, the more it seems that the ancient world was far more interconnected and far more advanced than we've been led to believe. But perhaps the most intriguing question isn't just how these technologies were created, but why they disappeared. Why didn't the knowledge behind the Antikythera mechanism or the Baghdad Battery continue to evolve? Was it lost to war, disaster, or the passage of time? Or was it deliberately hidden, preserved only in fragments that we're only now beginning to piece together? As we explore these ancient mysteries, we're left with more questions than answers, but one thing is clear: the past holds secrets that could reshape our understanding of history itself. The legend of Atlantis has captivated imaginations for centuries, and it's impossible to explore the idea of an ancient global civilization without diving into this enigmatic tale. First introduced by the ancient Greek philosopher Plato around 360 BCE, Atlantis was described as a powerful and advanced island nation that mysteriously vanished into the sea. But here's where it gets fascinating. Plato didn't present Atlantis as mere fiction. He framed it as a real place, a civilization so technologically and socially advanced that it became a cautionary tale about hubris and the consequences of overreaching ambition. Could this story, passed down through millennia, hold a kernel of truth, or is it simply a myth designed to teach a moral lesson? Let's unpack the possibilities. Plato's account places Atlantis beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which many interpret as the Strait of Gibraltar, suggesting a location in the Atlantic Ocean. He describes it as a utopia of sorts, with concentric rings of land and water, grand architecture, and a society thriving on trade and innovation. But what if this description isn't just a product of imagination? Some researchers propose that Atlantis could have been inspired by real-world civilizations, such as the Minoans of Crete, whose advanced culture was devastated by the volcanic eruption of Thera around 1600 BCE. Others point to the rich cities of the Tartessos civilization in southern Spain, which mysteriously disappeared around the same time Plato was writing. Could these cultures have been the seeds of the Atlantis legend? But the intrigue doesn't stop there. Some theorists go even further, suggesting that Atlantis wasn't just a single place but part of a larger, interconnected network of ancient civilizations. Think about it. If advanced societies existed across the globe, sharing knowledge and technology, could Atlantis have been a central hub, a meeting point for ideas and trade? This theory gains traction when you consider the similarities in architecture, mythology, and even astronomical knowledge found in cultures separated by vast oceans. From the pyramids of Egypt to the steppe temples of Mesoamerica, these parallels hint at the possibility of a shared global civilization, one that Atlantis might have anchored. Of course, skeptics argue that Atlantis is purely a myth, a story Plato crafted to illustrate the dangers of arrogance and the fragility of human achievement. After all, no concrete archaeological evidence of Atlantis has ever been found. But here's the thing: absence of evidence isn't necessarily evidence of absence. The ocean is vast, and much of our planet's history remains hidden beneath its waves. Could the ruins of Atlantis still be out there, waiting to be discovered? Or has time erased all traces of this once great civilization? What's undeniable is the enduring power of the Atlantis legend. Whether it's a cautionary tale, a distorted memory of a real place, or a symbol of humanity's longing for a lost golden age, Atlantis continues to inspire exploration and debate. And that's what makes it such a compelling piece of the ancient global civilization puzzle. It challenges us to question what we know, to look beyond the surface, and to imagine the possibilities of our shared past. So, what do you think? Was Atlantis real, or is it a story that's taken on a life of its own? The search for answers might just reveal more about us than about the lost continent itself. One of the most baffling enigmas of ancient history lies in the precision of maps that seem to defy their time. Take, for instance, the famous Piri Reis map created in 1513. This map, drawn by the Ottoman admiral and cartographer Piri Reis, not only captures the coastlines of Europe and Africa, but also appears to depict parts of the Americas with remarkable accuracy. What's even more astonishing is that it may include details of Antarctica, a continent that wouldn't be officially discovered for another 300 years. How could a 16th century mapmaker have access to such detailed geographical knowledge? Theories abound about how ancient civilizations might have achieved this level of cartographic sophistication. Some suggest that these maps were based on even older sources, perhaps inherited from a lost global civilization that had already explored the world long before recorded history. Others propose that advanced navigational techniques, possibly involving celestial navigation or even early forms of technology, allowed ancient seafarers to chart the Earth's surface with incredible precision. The Zeno map of the late 14th century and the Orontius Phineus map of 1531 also share this uncanny accuracy, raising the question: were these cartographers simply brilliant, or were they drawing from a much older, shared body of knowledge? What's particularly striking about these maps is how they align with modern satellite imagery. Coastlines, mountain ranges, and even rivers appear in positions that match our current understanding of geography. This level of detail suggests that whoever created the original source material had access to advanced surveying methods that shouldn't have existed at the time. Could it be possible that an ancient global civilization, now lost to history, had the means to map the world in ways we're only beginning to comprehend? Consider the implications. If these maps are indeed remnants of a forgotten era, they might hold clues to a time when humanity was far more interconnected than we ever imagined. The idea of a global civilization that spanned continents, sharing knowledge and technology, challenges everything we think we know about the past. Were these ancient explorers the true pioneers of navigation, setting the stage for the age of discovery centuries later? Or do these maps point to something even more extraordinary, a civilization that vanished, leaving behind only fragments of its achievements? As we piece together these clues, one thing becomes clear: the ancient world was far more complex and interconnected than traditional history books suggest. These maps are not just artifacts, they're windows into a time when the boundaries of human knowledge may have extended far beyond what we've been taught. And as we continue to explore their mysteries, we're reminded that history is not always as straightforward as it seems. Symbols and sacred geometry seem to whisper a hidden language across the ages, appearing in cultures separated by vast oceans and centuries. From the swastika, an ancient symbol of prosperity and good fortune found in Hinduism, Buddhism, and even Native American traditions, to the mesmerizing Fibonacci spiral, a pattern that mirrors the growth of seashells and galaxies alike, these designs transcend time and place. What could explain their widespread presence? Were they random creations, or could they point to a shared system of knowledge, a kind of universal code understood by ancient peoples? Take the swastika, for example. Long before it became a symbol of modern infamy, it was revered across the world. In India, it represented the sun and eternal motion, while in ancient Greece, it adorned pottery and architecture as a sign of harmony. Even in the Americas, Navajo and Hopi tribes used it in rituals, associating it with the cycles of life. This recurring motif raises questions. Did these cultures independently arrive at the same design, or was there a deeper connection, a thread of shared understanding woven through humanity's past? Then there's sacred geometry, the study of shapes and patterns that seem to hold cosmic significance. The Fibonacci spiral, for instance, isn't just a mathematical curiosity. It's a blueprint found in nature, from the arrangement of sunflower seeds to the structure of hurricanes. Ancient architects and artists appear to have recognized its power, incorporating it into sacred sites like the Great Pyramid of Giza and the Parthenon. Could these patterns have been more than decorative? Were they meant to encode knowledge about the universe, acting as a bridge between the physical and the divine? What's striking is how these symbols often carry similar meanings across cultures. The circle, for example, universally represents unity and eternity, while the triangle frequently symbolizes balance and harmony. These shared interpretations suggest that, regardless of where or when they emerged, humanity's ancestors may have tapped into a collective understanding of the world around them. Whether through intuition, observation, or even contact with a lost global civilization, these symbols seem to hint at a deeper connection, one that transcends borders and time. So, were these designs part of a universal language? A way for ancient peoples to communicate complex ideas without words? Or do they reflect something even more profound, a shared recognition of the patterns that govern life itself? As we explore these questions, the symbols and sacred geometry of the past invite us to reconsider not just how ancient civilizations saw the world, but how we might rediscover their wisdom today. One of the most fascinating aspects of ancient civilizations is their ability to align massive structures with celestial bodies. From the pyramids of Giza to the temples of Angkor Wat, these monumental creations seem to mirror the movements of the stars, sun, and moon with astonishing precision. But what does this tell us about their understanding of the cosmos? Did these alignments serve a practical purpose like navigation or timekeeping, or were they tied to something more profound, spiritual or cosmological beliefs? And perhaps even more intriguing, could this shared astronomical knowledge hint at a connection between distant cultures, pointing to a global civilization with a unified vision of the heavens? Take Stonehenge, for example. This iconic stone circle in England is famously aligned with the summer solstice sunrise. On that day, the sun rises directly over the heel stone, casting a beam of light into the heart of the monument. It's a breathtaking display of engineering and astronomical insight, but it's not unique. Across the Atlantic, the Mayans built Chichen Itza with similar precision. During the spring and autumn equinoxes, the play of light and shadow on the pyramid steps creates the illusion of a serpent descending the structure, a phenomenon tied to their deity Kukulkan. The fact that cultures separated by vast oceans could achieve such feats raises the question: was this knowledge independently discovered, or was there some form of exchange or shared wisdom? But it's not just about the sun. The Great Pyramid of Giza is aligned almost perfectly with true north, and its 4 sides correspond to the cardinal directions. Some researchers believe this alignment was tied to the North Star, which ancient Egyptians used for navigation and possibly even as a spiritual guide. Similarly, in South America, the Inca city of Cusco was designed in the shape of a puma, with its main temple aligned to the winter solstice sunrise. These patterns suggest a deep understanding of celestial cycles, one that went beyond practical needs and into the realm of cosmology and mythology. What's truly remarkable is how these alignments often reflect a universal fascination with the sky. Whether it's the alignment of the Egyptian pyramids with Orion's belt, the Nazca lines in Peru pointing to constellations, or the ancient Chinese observatories tracking lunar cycles, there's a recurring theme: the heavens were a source of guidance, inspiration, and meaning. Could this shared reverence for the stars indicate a kind of global network of knowledge, where ideas and discoveries were exchanged across continents? Or is it simply a case of humanity's collective curiosity leading to similar conclusions in different parts of the world? The implications are profound. If these alignments were more than coincidental, they could suggest a level of communication or collaboration between ancient cultures that we've yet to fully understand. Imagine a world where knowledge of the stars wasn't confined by geography, where the movements of the heavens were a universal language connecting people across vast distances. It's a tantalizing thought, one that challenges our understanding of history and invites us to look at the past with fresh eyes. What if the thriving global civilization we've been discussing met its end in a moment of unimaginable destruction? Some theorists argue that a catastrophic event, like a comet striking the Earth or a flood of biblical proportions, could have obliterated this advanced network, leaving only fragments behind. But what evidence do we have to support such a dramatic claim? Let's take a closer look at the clues left in the ground and beneath the waves. One of the most compelling pieces of evidence comes from what's known as the Younger Dryas period, a time roughly 12,900 years ago when the Earth experienced a sudden and dramatic cooling. During this period, scientists have found a layer of sediment filled with tiny diamonds, melted glass, and other materials that suggest an extraterrestrial impact. Could this be the smoking gun for a comet strike that devastated civilizations? Some researchers believe so, pointing to the way this event coincides with the disappearance of several ancient cultures and megafauna species. But it's not just geology that tells this story. Flood myths appear in nearly every ancient culture, from the Epic of Gilgamesh to the story of Noah's Ark. Could these tales be more than just legends? In the Black Sea region, for example, there's evidence of a massive flood around 7,600 years ago, when rising sea levels breached a natural dam and inundated the area. This event would have been catastrophic for any settlements nearby, and it's possible that survivors carried the memory of this disaster with them, passing it down through generations as a warning. Archaeology also offers tantalizing hints. In places like Göbekli Tepe, a site in modern-day Turkey that dates back over 11,000 years, researchers have uncovered massive stone structures buried intentionally, as if to protect them from some impending doom. Why would such an advanced society go to such lengths unless they were preparing for or recovering from a global catastrophe? The idea of a global civilization being wiped out by a single event is both fascinating and humbling. It forces us to consider how fragile even the most advanced societies can be in the face of nature's power. And while the evidence is still debated, the possibility that our ancestors faced such a cataclysm and survived to tell the tale reminds us of the resilience of humanity. Could these ancient stories and discoveries be pieces of a puzzle we're only beginning to solve? One of the most fascinating questions surrounding ancient civilizations is whether their shared traits came from cultural diffusion, where ideas spread from one group to another, or if these similarities arose independently, entirely on their own. It's a debate that sparks intense discussion among historians and archaeologists, and for good reason. On one hand, there's the idea that ancient peoples were connected, exchanging knowledge, beliefs, and technologies across vast distances. On the other hand, some argue that humans, when faced with similar challenges, often arrive at similar solutions without needing to interact. So, which is it? Let's break it down. First, consider the evidence for cultural diffusion. Take something as striking as pyramid structures. We find them in Egypt, Mesopotamia, Mesoamerica, and even as far as Southeast Asia. How could such distinct cultures, separated by oceans and continents, build such similar monumental structures? Proponents of cultural diffusion argue that these parallels aren't coincidental. They suggest that ancient travelers, traders, or even lost civilizations could have carried architectural ideas across the globe, leaving behind a shared legacy. There's also the intriguing case of the Olmec colossal heads, which some researchers believe show influences from African or Mediterranean cultures, hinting at possible transoceanic contact thousands of years ago. But then there's the case for independent development. Humans, no matter where they are, share certain universal needs and instincts. For example, nearly every ancient culture developed agriculture, pottery, and tools. These innovations weren't spread from one place to another. They emerged independently because they were practical solutions to common problems. Similarly, pyramids might not be proof of connection, but rather a logical response to the need for stable, imposing structures. After all, a pyramid's shape is inherently strong, making it an obvious choice for monumental architecture. Could it be that ancient peoples simply thought alike because they faced similar challenges? The debate becomes even more complex when we look at symbolic and artistic similarities. For instance, the swastika symbol appears in cultures as diverse as the Indus Valley, Native American tribes, and ancient Europe. Is this a sign of a shared global culture, or is it a case of humans independently arriving at a simple, powerful design? Some argue that the swastika's geometric simplicity makes it a natural choice for decoration or symbolism, while others point to its widespread use as evidence of ancient connections. So, where does this leave us? The truth likely lies somewhere in between. While some similarities might indeed be the result of cultural diffusion, especially in cases where artifacts or ideas appear suddenly without a clear local precedent, others are almost certainly the product of independent innovation. What's truly remarkable is how these two possibilities intertwine, offering us a glimpse into the ingenuity and interconnectedness of ancient peoples. Whether through shared knowledge or parallel thinking, the echoes of these civilizations remind us of humanity's shared journey through time, and perhaps that's the most compelling connection of all. Long before the written word, humanity relied on something even more universal: the power of spoken stories. Across continents and cultures, oral traditions served as the original libraries of human knowledge. These weren't just tales told around a fire, they were the lifeblood of civilizations, encoding everything from history and astronomy to moral codes and survival techniques. But what if these ancient stories held more than just local wisdom? What if they carried echoes of a shared, global past? Consider the similarities found in myths and legends from cultures that were supposedly isolated from one another. Flood narratives, for instance, appear in the traditions of the Mesopotamians, the Greeks, the Maya, and even indigenous peoples of the Americas. Could these stories be more than coincidence? Some researchers suggest they might reflect a collective memory, a shared experience of a cataclysmic event perhaps, or even the remnants of a once-connected world. Oral traditions, with their vivid imagery and rhythmic repetition, were designed to be memorable, ensuring that critical knowledge survived for generations. But how reliable are these stories? Without written records, it's easy to dismiss oral histories as mere folklore. Yet, studies have shown that oral traditions can preserve astonishingly accurate details over centuries. Take, for example, the Aboriginal Australians, whose oral histories describe geographical features that match landscapes from tens of thousands of years ago, long before modern mapping. This suggests that oral traditions aren't just imaginative tales, they're carefully curated repositories of information passed down with precision. Songs and rituals played a crucial role in this process. Think about how a catchy tune or a repetitive chant can stick in your mind for days. Ancient cultures harnessed this power, embedding complex knowledge into music and ceremonies. These practices weren't just entertainment, they were mnemonic devices, ensuring that critical information was remembered and transmitted with minimal distortion. In this way, oral traditions might have acted as a kind of ancient cloud storage, preserving the wisdom of a global civilization long before writing was invented. Of course, oral histories aren't without their challenges. Over time, stories can shift, adapt, or merge with others, making it difficult to separate fact from embellishment. But even these changes can offer clues. The way a story evolves often reflects the values, fears, and priorities of the people telling it. By studying these patterns, we might uncover deeper truths about how ancient societies viewed their place in the world and whether they believed they were part of something much larger. So, the next time you hear an old myth or a traditional song, consider this. It might not just be a story. It could be a fragment of a much older narrative, one that connects us all. Oral traditions remind us that long before we wrote our history, we were already weaving it into the fabric of our shared human experience. When we think of ancient trade routes, the Silk Road often comes to mind, a sprawling network that connected East Asia to the Mediterranean, carrying everything from silk and spices to philosophies and religions. But what if this wasn't the beginning? What if long before the Silk Road, there were even older pathways crisscrossing the globe, linking civilizations in ways we're only starting to understand? Archaeological discoveries have begun to hint at the existence of prehistoric trade routes that operated thousands of years before the Silk Road. For instance, obsidian, a volcanic glass highly prized for its sharp edges, has been found hundreds of miles from its volcanic sources. In Turkey, obsidian from the Cappadocia region has been uncovered in sites as far away as Mesopotamia, dating back to around 7000 BC. Similarly, in the Americas, shells from coastal regions have been discovered deep inland, suggesting that trade networks existed long before written history. What's particularly fascinating is that these exchanges weren't just about goods. Along with materials like obsidian, flint, and amber, ideas and technologies traveled these routes. Early humans might have shared techniques for tool making, agriculture, and even artistic expression. Imagine a group of traders meeting in a remote valley, exchanging not only tools but also stories, rituals, and innovations that would shape their respective cultures. Could these networks have been part of a larger, interconnected system, a kind of prehistoric internet that linked distant peoples across the globe? One theory suggests that these early trade routes were not random but followed natural pathways like rivers, coastlines, and mountain passes. These routes would have been shaped by geography, making them both predictable and efficient. For example, the Danube River in Europe may have served as a major artery for trade, connecting settlements from the Black Sea to the heart of the continent. Similarly, the Indian Ocean's monsoon winds could have guided ancient sailors, creating a maritime network that spanned vast distances. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Could these prehistoric trade routes have been part of a global system? Some researchers point to striking similarities in artifacts, symbols, and even architectural styles found in distant parts of the world. For instance, the use of megalithic stones in structures like Stonehenge in England and Göbekli Tepe in Turkey raises questions about whether these cultures were influenced by a shared knowledge base, possibly transmitted through ancient trade networks. Of course, proving the existence of such a global system is no easy task. The evidence is fragmentary, and much of it lies buried beneath centuries of soil and sediment. Yet, every new discovery, a piece of pottery, a tool, or a symbol etched into stone brings us closer to unraveling this ancient mystery. Were these early trade routes simply regional exchanges, or did they form the foundation of a truly interconnected world? As we piece together the clues, one thing becomes clear. The story of human civilization is far more complex and interconnected than we once thought. These ancient pathways remind us that even in the distant past, people were curious, resourceful, and driven to connect with others, traits that continue to define us today. What if the world once shared a common way to communicate? Imagine a time when people across vast distances from the deserts of Egypt to the jungles of South America used the same symbols, the same script to convey ideas. It's a bold idea, but some researchers believe there's evidence pointing to a prehistoric language that might have connected ancient civilizations. Take, for example, the mysterious symbols found carved into stones, clay tablets, and cave walls across the globe. From the Indus Valley script to the undeciphered Vinca symbols of southeastern Europe, these markings share uncanny similarities. Curved lines, spirals, and geometric patterns repeat in places separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time. Could these be fragments of a universal language, a shared system of communication that once tied humanity together? One compelling piece of evidence comes from the recurring image of the spiral. This symbol appears in ancient art from Newgrange in Ireland to the petroglyphs of the American Southwest. While some dismiss it as a coincidence or a natural artistic motif, others argue that its widespread use suggests a deeper meaning, a shared understanding that transcended geography and culture. But it's not just symbols that hint at a prehistoric language. Some linguists point to the striking similarities between certain words in unrelated languages. For instance, the word for mother often sounds remarkably alike across cultures, like mama in English, mammon in French, and mata in Sanskrit. Could this be a linguistic echo of a much older universal language? Of course, not everyone agrees. Critics argue that these similarities could simply be the result of human psychology or the basic constraints of how we form sounds. Yet, the idea of a prehistoric language persists, fueled by the tantalizing possibility that our ancestors were far more connected than we ever imagined. So, what do you think? Could these symbols and words be the faint whispers of a global civilization, or are we just seeing patterns where none exist? The mystery remains, waiting to be unraveled. One of the most baffling aspects of archaeology is the existence of sites and artifacts that seem to defy conventional explanations. Take, for instance, the Nazca lines in Peru, enormous geoglyphs etched into the desert floor, visible only from the air. These intricate designs, some stretching over several hundred feet, depict animals, plants, and geometric patterns. Who created them and for what purpose? The precision and scale of these figures suggest a level of planning and technology that challenges our understanding of the ancient Nazca culture. But could these lines be more than just local art? Some researchers propose that they might have served as markers or signals for something, or someone far beyond the scope of what we've imagined. Then there's the Yonaguni Monument, a massive underwater structure discovered off the coast of Japan. Its terraced steps, sharp angles, and what appear to be carved pathways have sparked intense debate. Is this a natural formation shaped by tidal forces and erosion, or is it the remains of a man-made structure, perhaps part of a lost civilization submerged by rising sea levels? The possibility that humans built something so sophisticated thousands of years ago, only for it to vanish beneath the waves, raises profound questions about our past. Could Yonaguni be a fragment of a larger network of ancient sites connected by a shared purpose or knowledge? These anomalies aren't isolated. From the megalithic stones of Puma Punku in Bolivia to the mysterious Antikythera mechanism, a device often called the world's first computer, there are countless examples of ancient ingenuity that seem out of place in their historical context. What ties them together? Some theories suggest that these sites and artifacts are remnants of a once global civilization, a network of advanced cultures that shared ideas, technology, or even a common origin. The similarities in construction techniques, astronomical alignments, and symbolic motifs across distant regions hint at a deeper connection, one that mainstream history has yet to fully explain. But why would evidence of such a civilization be scattered and fragmented? If it existed, why isn't it more widely recognized? The answer might lie in the chaotic nature of history itself. Civilizations rise and fall, knowledge is lost, and entire cultures can vanish almost without a trace. What we're left with are these tantalizing clues, scattered across the globe like pieces of a puzzle waiting to be assembled. Could it be that we're only now beginning to see the bigger picture, one that redefines our understanding of human history? The mysteries of the Nazca lines, Yonaguni, and other enigmatic sites challenge us to look beyond the familiar narratives and consider the possibility that our ancestors were far more interconnected and far more advanced than we've ever imagined. Imagine setting sail across an endless expanse of water, guided only by the stars, the currents, and the whispers of the wind. This was the reality for ancient seafarers like the Polynesians and the Phoenicians, whose mastery of the oceans may have played a pivotal role in connecting distant civilizations long before modern navigation tools existed. These cultures weren't just travelers, they were explorers, traders, and perhaps most intriguingly, carriers of knowledge. Could their voyages have been the threads that wove together a global civilization, spreading ideas, technologies, and culture across vast distances? The Polynesians stand out as some of history's most remarkable navigators. Using little more than their deep understanding of the stars, wave patterns, and bird behaviors, they traversed the Pacific Ocean, settling islands thousands of miles apart. Their double-hulled canoes, designed for stability and speed, carried not just people but also plants, animals, and cultural practices from one island to another. This wasn't random exploration, it was deliberate expansion, a network of interconnected communities sharing knowledge and resources across the vast Pacific. Could their voyages have reached even further, perhaps connecting with other seafaring cultures in ways we're only beginning to uncover? Then there are the Phoenicians, often called the traders of antiquity. These Mediterranean sailors were the first to establish extensive trade routes that stretched from the coasts of modern-day Lebanon to as far as Britain and West Africa. Their ships carried goods like purple dye, glass, and cedar wood, but they also transported something far more valuable: ideas. The Phoenician alphabet, for example, became the foundation for many modern writing systems. Their influence didn't stop at trade. Some theories suggest they may have even reached the Americas, though this remains hotly debated. What's undeniable is their role as cultural bridges, linking societies that might otherwise have remained isolated. But how did these ancient mariners manage such incredible feats without modern technology? The answer lies in their deep connection to the natural world. Polynesian navigators, for instance, relied on wayfinding, a sophisticated system of reading the stars, ocean swells, and even the flight patterns of birds. The Phoenicians, meanwhile, charted coastal routes and used celestial navigation to guide their journeys. These methods weren't just practical, they were a testament to human ingenuity and adaptability. It's a reminder that ancient peoples weren't primitive. They were profoundly skilled with knowledge systems that rivaled modern advancements. Could these seafaring cultures have been more than just isolated explorers? Some researchers propose that their voyages may have created a web of connections, linking distant lands into a kind of proto-global civilization. Imagine a world where Polynesian navigators shared knowledge with the peoples of Southeast Asia, or where Phoenician traders exchanged ideas with the ancient Egyptians and Greeks. These interactions, though difficult to trace, might have seeded innovations in agriculture, architecture, and even governance across the globe. While concrete evidence is scarce, the possibility is tantalizing: a world where oceans were highways, not barriers. The idea of ancient seafarers as connectors of civilizations challenges our traditional view of history. It suggests that humanity's story is far more interconnected than we often assume, with threads of knowledge and culture stretching across continents and oceans. As we uncover more about these remarkable cultures, one thing becomes clear: the seas weren't just a vast, empty space. They were a dynamic, living network, pulsating with the movements of people, ideas, and shared dreams. And perhaps in those ancient voyages, we can find the seeds of the globalized world we live in today. What if the golden ages described in myths and legends weren't just tales of imagination, but faint echoes of a real, shared history? Across the globe, from the ancient Greeks to the Vedic texts of India, and even in the oral traditions of indigenous peoples, there's a recurring theme: a time when humanity lived in peace, abundance, and profound wisdom. These stories, often dismissed as mere folklore, might hold the key to unraveling a deeper truth: the possibility of an advanced, interconnected civilization that once spanned the earth. Take Plato's account of Atlantis, for instance. He described a highly advanced society with remarkable technology, thriving in harmony with nature until it vanished beneath the waves. But Atlantis isn't alone. The Hindu concept of Satya Yuga speaks of an age of truth and perfection, where humans possessed extraordinary abilities and lived in balance with the universe. Similarly, the Hopi people of North America tell of a time when their ancestors lived in a golden era of prosperity before a great cataclysm forced them to start anew. These narratives, though separated by vast distances and cultures, share striking similarities. Could they all be pointing to the same lost epoch? What's fascinating is how these stories often include details that seem too specific to be coincidental. Advanced technology, global communication, and even the use of flying machines appear in multiple traditions. The ancient Indian epics, like the Mahabharata, describe Vimana's flying chariots, while the Aztecs and Mayans spoke of gods who descended from the skies. Even the Bible's Tower of Babel hints at a time when humanity was united, only to be scattered by a divine intervention. These threads weave a tapestry that suggests something extraordinary once existed, a civilization far more sophisticated than we've been led to believe. But here's the question: if such a civilization existed, what happened to it? Many of these myths conclude with a catastrophic event, a flood, a war, or a cosmic disaster that brought an end to this golden age. Could these stories be symbolic memories of a real collapse? Some researchers propose that a worldwide cataclysm, like a comet impact or a sudden climate shift, might have erased much of this ancient world, leaving only fragments of its memory behind. These fragments, passed down through generations, became the myths we know today. The idea of a lost golden age isn't just fascinating, it's deeply human. It speaks to a longing for unity, wisdom, and a connection to something greater than ourselves. Whether these stories are literal history or symbolic allegories, they remind us that humanity has always sought to understand its origins and its potential. And perhaps buried within these ancient tales lies a clue to a truth that could reshape how we see our past and our future. What if the history we've been taught is just the tip of the iceberg? What if there's evidence of an ancient global civilization that once connected cultures across the globe? The idea isn't just a fascinating puzzle for historians. It could fundamentally change how we see ourselves and our place in the world. If such a civilization existed, it wouldn't just rewrite the past. It could reshape how we approach archaeology, anthropology, and even the way we build our future. For archaeologists, this theory challenges the traditional timeline of human development. Instead of viewing ancient cultures as isolated and independent, we might start seeing them as interconnected pieces of a much larger puzzle. Think about it: if similar symbols, architectural styles, and myths appear in distant parts of the world, could they be fragments of a shared heritage? This would push researchers to look beyond regional boundaries and consider a more unified approach to studying the ancient world. Anthropology, too, would feel the ripple effects. If humanity was once united by a global civilization, what does that say about our shared identity? It could suggest that cooperation and cultural exchange are deeply rooted in our history rather than being modern innovations. This perspective might even inspire us to rethink how we tackle global challenges today, from climate change to political divides. After all, if our ancestors could collaborate across continents, maybe we can too. And then there's the impact on modern society. Imagine discovering that the roots of our technology, spirituality, and art trace back to a single ancient source. Wouldn't that give us a deeper sense of connection to one another? It could spark a renewed interest in preserving ancient knowledge and traditions, while also encouraging us to innovate in ways that honor our shared past. But perhaps the most intriguing question is this: if this theory is true, how might it influence our future? Could understanding our ancient global connections help us build a more unified and sustainable world? The possibilities are as vast as they are inspiring. So, as we continue to explore this idea, let's not just look back, let's consider how it might guide us forward. After all, history isn't just about where we've been, it's about where we're going. Every theory, no matter how compelling, faces its share of skeptics, and the idea of an ancient global civilization connecting the world is no exception. While the concept is fascinating, it's important to address the criticisms head-on to understand the full picture. One of the most common arguments against this hypothesis is the lack of direct, irrefutable evidence. Skeptics argue that while similarities in architecture, myths, and symbols across ancient cultures are intriguing, they don't necessarily prove a shared global civilization. Instead, these parallels could simply be the result of independent development or limited cultural exchanges through trade routes. Another point of contention lies in the interpretation of ancient artifacts. Critics often highlight how easy it is to project modern ideas onto ancient objects, leading to potentially biased conclusions. For example, a symbol that appears universal might have held entirely different meanings in various cultures. Without written records or clear context, interpreting these artifacts becomes a matter of speculation rather than definitive proof. Yet, proponents of the ancient global civilization theory counter these criticisms with their own compelling arguments. They point to the sheer volume of similarities across distant cultures, similarities that seem too specific to be mere coincidences. How likely is it that pyramids, for instance, would emerge independently in Egypt, Mesoamerica, and Southeast Asia? They also argue that the absence of direct evidence doesn't necessarily disprove the theory. After all, much of human history has been lost to time, natural disasters, or deliberate destruction. The debate ultimately hinges on how we weigh circumstantial evidence versus the need for concrete proof. While skeptics demand more tangible connections, supporters believe the patterns we see are too significant to ignore. It's a classic clash between those who prefer cautious, evidence-based approaches and those willing to entertain bold, imaginative possibilities. Both sides raise valid points, and the truth likely lies somewhere in between, a reminder that history is rarely as clear-cut as we'd like it to be. By exploring these criticisms and counterarguments, we gain a more nuanced understanding of the ancient global civilization hypothesis. It's not about proving one side right or wrong, but about appreciating the complexity of unraveling humanity's distant past. As we continue to uncover new discoveries, the conversation evolves, inviting us to keep an open mind while remaining grounded in critical thinking. As we stand on the edge of discovery, the search for evidence of an ancient global civilization continues to evolve, driven by groundbreaking technologies and innovative methodologies. Satellite imaging, for instance, has revolutionized how we explore the past, allowing researchers to scan vast areas of the Earth's surface from above. These high-resolution images reveal hidden patterns, structures, and even entire settlements buried beneath layers of soil or dense vegetation. Imagine uncovering the faint outlines of a sprawling ancient city, invisible to the naked eye but brought to life through the lens of modern technology. It's like piecing together a puzzle that spans continents and millennia. Underwater archaeology, too, is opening new doors to the past. Beneath the waves, ancient ruins and artifacts lie preserved, untouched by the passage of time. Advanced sonar systems and remotely operated vehicles now allow us to explore these submerged worlds with unprecedented precision. Could there be lost cities beneath the oceans, waiting to rewrite our understanding of early human societies? The potential is staggering, and every dive into the depths could bring us closer to answers. But it's not just about the tools we use, it's also about how we interpret the data. Interdisciplinary collaboration is key, with archaeologists, historians, geologists, and even computer scientists working together to analyze findings. Artificial intelligence, for example, is being employed to sift through massive datasets, identifying patterns and connections that might otherwise go unnoticed. This fusion of old-world curiosity and cutting-edge innovation is pushing the boundaries of what we thought possible. What could these discoveries mean for our understanding of history? If evidence of an interconnected ancient civilization were to emerge, it would challenge long-held assumptions about how early societies developed. Were ancient cultures more advanced than we've given them credit for? Did they share knowledge and ideas across vast distances, creating a global network long before the modern era? These questions spark both excitement and debate, reminding us that history is not a static story but a dynamic, ever-evolving narrative. As we look to the future, one thing is certain: the search for an ancient global civilization is far from over. Each new discovery has the potential to reshape our understanding of the past, revealing a world more connected and complex than we ever imagined. And with every step forward, we're not just uncovering history, we're rediscovering ourselves. As we wrap up this journey into the mysteries of an ancient global civilization, it's impossible not to feel a sense of awe at how much of our history remains shrouded in uncertainty. The patterns we've uncovered, shared myths, strikingly similar architectural styles, and cultural symbols that span continents, paint a picture of a world far more connected in antiquity than we might have thought. These theories don't just rewrite history, they invite us to reconsider how we see ourselves and our place in the grand tapestry of human existence. What's truly fascinating is how these ideas challenge the traditional narratives we've been taught. They push us to ask bigger questions. Could there have been a time when humanity was united under a shared vision, a common purpose that transcended borders and languages? Or are these similarities simply the result of human ingenuity and the universal patterns of our collective imagination? Either way, the implications are profound. They remind us that history is not a static collection of facts but a living, evolving story, one that we are still piecing together, and that's the beauty of exploring these theories. They don't just offer answers, they spark curiosity. They encourage us to look at the world with fresh eyes, to question what we think we know, and to consider the possibility that our ancestors may have been far more advanced or far more interconnected than we give them credit for. Whether you're a skeptic or a believer, one thing is certain: the past holds secrets that continue to shape our present in ways we're only beginning to understand. So, what do you think? Could the echoes of a forgotten civilization still be influencing our lives today, hidden in the stories we tell, the monuments we build, or even the way we see the world? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and if you've enjoyed this deep dive into the mysteries of our past, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. There are so many more stories to uncover, and we can't wait to explore them with you. Until next time, keep questioning, keep wondering, and keep uncovering the extraordinary in the everyday.